Here we go. All right, everybody. Luis Maya speaking here. This is the behavioral economics of global affairs. It's very good to have you all here tonight. As always, we have like very interesting topics to
Boa
discuss
noite,
tonight.
boa noite, professor, boa noite a todos.
Boa noite, Isaac. How's it going? Are you all right?
Tudo
Oh,
certo, professor? Tudo
good,
bem,
good.
graças a
I can
Deus.
see. Maravilha, Isaac. Estou vendo aqui no chat as pessoas dizendo que algumas pessoas não estavam achando a nota da quinta lista de exercícios, mas aí olharam na caixa de spam e aí estava lá a nota, tá? So,
Ah, desse
all of
último, né?
you, yeah, the last list of exercises, I have just sent the results, like in 5 minutes ago. If you don't get it by tomorrow, please contact me and I'm gonna figure out what's going on, okay? But go ahead and check the spam box too, okay? Dá uma olhadinha lá na sua caixa de e-mail, deve ter chegado o resultado da lista de exercícios. Se não tiver chegado até amanhã, avise ao Luiz Maia. Okay, all right, guys, this is very important topic too. It's not only interesting, but it's very important. So let me start right at this moment saying what is the big message here? The big message is this: prejudice and discrimination is part of our reality. And it shouldn't be, but it is. So we have to realize that this problem is with us for quite some time already, and it's going to be with us for some time in the future. Okay? In order to deal with it and try to mitigate many risks, we also have to understand what's going on in our brains that makes us behave the way we do, ok? A questão, gente, não é só a gente entender que algumas pessoas são violentas, que algumas pessoas são discriminatórias, que algumas pessoas são discriminadas no mercado de trabalho. Não basta a gente falar desse problema sob a lógica do drama, do sofrimento que ele gera na sociedade. A gente precisa entender por que essa maquininha aqui, seja o chinês, seja o alemão, seja o brasileiro, seja o americano, seja o paraguaio, por que essa maquininha aqui tem essa tendência a ser preconceituosa, a fazer discriminação. E quando eu estou falando essa maquininha, eu estou falando a maquininha da pessoa que se acha branca, da pessoa que se acha preta, da pessoa que se acha amarela, da pessoa que acha a cor e a identidade que ela quiser. All right, so this is a very important topic. There is this kind of cognitive aspect of discrimination and prejudice, and we have to look at it. We have to understand what's going on, okay? All right. But let me hear from you first. Let me hear what kind of comments you guys may have about the discussion. What you have heard, what you have seen as a video, o material que eu compartilhei. Who would like to say a few words about this? Prejudice and discrimination in Brazil. Who would like to start? It doesn't need to be much. Just give me your perspective on that. Ninguém precisa ser especialista, pessoal. Eu quero ouvir uma frase ou duas sobre qual que é a questão. O que está acontecendo? Por que o Brasil ainda é um país preconceituoso? Por que o mundo ainda é tão preconceituoso? Tem melhorado? Não tem melhorado? A coisa está avançando? O que tem ajudado? O que tem atrapalhado? If you don't say anything, I'm going to start. Okay, so today, CBF, which is the body that takes care of soccer in Brazil, football. These guys are approving that some rules and some penalties concerning racism in the stadium, in a soccer stadium, those rules will be part of the rules of the championship. Então agora tem regras dentro dos campeonatos de futebol sobre como os times, as pessoas, as agremiações, as torcidas serão punidas quando a gente tiver racismo nos estádios. All right, so this is a good day. Finally, people are moving on in order to make things happen. We have to stop racism in soccer. And it's still there. We know it is still there. What else? Who would like to make a comment about this? Raise your hand if you like soccer. João Gabriel is saying, I have a black girlfriend and now I get it. I get the difference. I understand, right? That's very nice to say, João. We have to be very honest about this. We are all a little bit with prejudice. We all have a little bit of that on us, in us. And we have to be honest about this. We have to try and understand why is that so. How can we try and become more empathetic and understand that we are all humans, right? That's the point. Okay. Who else would like to make a comment? You know what? I will make another comment. I love when I see Vinicius Junior scoring a goal in the best team of the world and dancing. And if people call him names and people act towards him with prejudice, and he doesn't care. He say, I'm Brazilian, I'm proud of it, I'm black, and I'm one of the best players in the world. And as soon as I score, I'm gonna dance. I think this is perfect. We have to have more Vinicius Junior, right? We have to have more people like this, saying, I am talented young man, I have success, and I will do my thing. I'm not afraid of who I am. I'm proud of who I am. This is not, this is very recent in Brazil, you know? For a long, long time, Brazilian people looked at their own color and said, oh, yeah, I don't have the best color. They use expressions like this. A cor minha não é a melhor, mas pelo menos eu. People would say that about themselves. Can you believe that? Very recently, we had this. So, things are changing, thank God, and hopefully they will change even more. Anyone? I see Monica with the hand raised. You want to say something, Monica, please? Go ahead. Tô vendo sua mãozinha levantada aqui, Mônica.
Ah, não, foi engano, professor. Desculpe.
Foi de antes, né? Foi da outra pergunta. All right. Okay. So let me share my screen here with you. And we are going to start talking about this huge, very important topic. Wait. I want to share this thing. Okay. Please confirm to me that you can see this purple screen saying Thinking Socially, Prejudice and Discrimination. Can you guys see the purple screen?
Yeah, teacher. We can see.
All right, thanks. Okay, guys, so let me tell you a story, and then we're going to start talking about prejudice and discrimination. I don't know, but maybe some of you have seen what I'm going to tell you. People go to stadium, Okay? They want to watch soccer. All over Brazil, people love to watch soccer. They root for their teams, and I don't know. So you're there in the middle of a huge crowd. People are chanting, saying, esporte, casar, 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 or N-A-U-T-I-C-O, or I don't know, whatever. They're singing stuff, and then all of a sudden, the goalkeeper is going to kick in the ball, kick start the ball. So he takes a few steps back, and he just gives this huge kick to throw the ball all the way to the other side of the field. And as he's doing that, people are saying, yeah, and at the end of it, they scream, viado, and they scream something like homosexual or something like this. So I don't know if you have seen this thing, but it has happened so many times. So you are in a crowd, you yourself, you are a polite person. You wouldn't scream something to someone. You wouldn't treat people like that in your daily life. But once you are in the stadium, somehow you start doing what other people do. You see? These things happen. And prejudice and discrimination, many times they work exactly that way. We do what other people do. Sometimes we don't even want to, but we feel like we should do what everyone else is doing. I'm not saying that this is an excuse. This is a good justification for doing that. What I can tell you honestly, I myself as a kid, how many times I have screamed bad things about the referee's mother. Quantas vezes que eu, como criança, fui para o estádio e fiquei lá xingando a mãe do juiz? The lady has done nothing. Whatever the referee is doing, that I'm angry, I'm calling names for his mother. And it's not only me. As a kid, I saw my father doing that. Now, if you met my father, you would say, come on, Luis, I don't believe your father did that. And I said, yeah, he did. Um senhor que é advogado, pai de família, respeitado, uma pessoa respeitadora, religioso, vai para o estádio, chega lá e xinga a mãe do juiz. Xinga a pessoa com nomes racistas. We do things like this, so we have to understand why we do it. Prejudice, discrimination, those are topics that we have to discuss. We have to understand. It's not only because people are bad, because people are, I don't know, evil. It's not like this. We have to understand what's going on, and that's what we're going to try and do today, okay? So let me start with this case. Now, this is a very interesting material, okay? We are talking here about how to reduce prejudice and discrimination. And we're going to talk to you about two cases, okay? But before I do so, let me emphasize a few ideas here. So, we understand that most of the times we think people are rational. And so, if they are rational, they observe reality objectively. They make their decisions without any bias. They act on their own self-interest, and that's not what happens many, many times. A gente volta a conversar aqui sobre o fato de que a gente assume que as pessoas são racionais, que elas observam a realidade de forma objetiva e de que elas colocam lá sua cabecinha para pensar e conseguem tomar decisão sempre de maneira prudente, equilibrada e tal. That's not what happens, right? Many, many times we do things because other people do. Many times we acquire certain ways to behave that are not ours. We somehow behave like other people do, and we feel that we should. So in behavior economics, we understand that people are not always rational. We have mental models. Those mental models can be absorbed by you, by your father. You can transfer that to your kids. You can teach them to your neighbors. And somehow we reproduce social exclusion even much longer after actual barriers have been removed. Então, muitas vezes a gente reproduz padrões de comportamento, de exclusão social, mesmo quando barreiras formais já tenham sido removidas. Slavery has been ended in Brazil more than 100 years ago, 150 years ago. And still, some people behave as if one of their fellow human beings, if they were an object. We still reproduce some of those behaviors, okay? So let's start first about a case of a success. The actions that were performed in order to reduce or eliminate prejudice and discrimination, okay? So let's start with the good example, one of a success. So here we are talking about India, okay? A place in India called West Bengal, okay? So what's going on here? Well, it turns out that in large areas of India, you still have like women being treated as if they were not as important or not as capable as men. I know it's not only in India. Here in Brazil, we still have lots of that too, right? Okay, but let's take a look at this example here. So they decided to try and create some rules, some laws, in order to promote women and their social roles, ok? Então a ideia era tentar promover as mulheres e através de papéis sociais, que elas assumissem funções sociais mais relevantes. Okay, so this was an amendment to the Constitution. Look how interesting that is. In Brazil here, we are discussing all the time amendments of the Constitution because we want to spend some more money, because we want to introduce certain policies. In this case, look what they did. Na Índia, eles fizeram uma emenda à Constituição para fazer com que seja obrigatório em determinados estados que certas posições fossem designadas para mulheres. All right, so it introduced like mandatory rule for state governments so that they would have to reserve some of the positions of village head to women, okay? So it was like an experiment. They said, 1/3 of the villages, you're gonna have to assure that the women will be the leaders of those villages. Então imagine que você tivesse uma sociedade em que as pessoas vivem organizadas em vilas e que nessas vilas, nessas comunidades, existia uma figura tradicional do líder daquela comunidade, chamado Pradhan. Tá aqui, ó, a expressão aqui. Ou Pradhan. All right, so they said, in each state, at least 1/3 of the villages, they will have to have women as the leaders. Okay? So, what did this place do? They decided to randomly assign those reservations across villages. Ok? Então, eles simplesmente sortearam os nomes das vilas e falaram assim, aqui, na hora que a vila foi escolher o líder, a eleição vai ter que ser entre candidatas mulheres. And that's it. That's a rule. Now, first, people expected that women were not capable to rise up to that opportunity, that they wouldn't be good leaders, that they would quit. They would say, oh, no, I can't take it. It's too much pressure. It's too much ability. I don't want to participate anymore. So many people believed that this thing would not work. But it actually did work. And it worked in ways that weren't completely imaginable. Okay? First, the quality of the leadership was never lowered in any way. So what they saw is that once you evaluated the work of women, they said, like with the same proportion, how many people said it was good, it was bad. It was pretty much the same standard that you would find in other villages where men were leaders. Então, a taxa de aprovação dos líderes, das líderes mulheres, não era nada diferente da taxa de aprovação das outras cidades onde os homens eram líderes. So, that's first, it's a good message, right? So, you don't have a good, you have good leaders and bad leaders. You don't have good men leaders and bad women leaders, okay? What you have is like good leaders, regardless of their gender. That's the point. So this was the first result. It looked good enough, and it said, oh, this is great. Yeah, the policy worked. Então, a esse ponto, eles falaram assim, legal, a gente fez essa imposição, não sabia se dá certo, e deu certo, né? Porque a qualidade da liderança, assim como os homens, você tinha cidades em que as líderes mulheres eram excelentes líderes, outras não eram tão boas e tal, mas tinha a mesma padrão de avaliação que a gente tinha cidades lideradas por homens ou vilas lideradas por mulheres. Now, the other consequences of this policy, those are much more interesting. So, in certain places, living under a woman pradhan erased the prejudice of male villages against women leaders by many measures. But you can say, come on, now you don't have prejudice anymore? Well, take a look. First, it reduced the gap between a parent's aspirations for sons and daughters. This is already like amazing. Think about it. If you are a father or a mother, you look at your children and you say, you are a boy, you're going to be an engineer. You are going to be, I don't know, a mathematician. You're going to be like a scientist. And you look at the woman and you said, yeah, you may be a good mother. You may take good care of the house. Or you can take care of children. So there is this gap between what are the parents' aspirations for boys and girls, okay? So it turned out that after this experience, the gap disappeared. It was not exactly disappeared, but was severely reduced. Now think about this. After you see a good leader in your village, and she's a woman, you go back home, look at your daughter and say, yeah, you can be much more than just like a household. You can do great things in your life. So you change the parents' aspirations for sons and daughters. This gap between how you expect from one and how you don't expect from the other. Second point, in villages that had women leaders, parents' expectations for their daughters were higher, and girls have gone to school longer and had somewhat fewer hours, of course, of housework. Now look at this. This is not only opinion. It's not like a parent's opinion about the daughter. It's like, now we want her to stay longer in school, and we will give this daughter less housework than we used to do. Oh, come on. This is a huge change, right? And by the way, after the reservation ended in a village, women have run for political office in higher percentages, in many cases, won the elections. So as soon as the policy was over, the effect was permanent. All right. This is a very interesting example, right? Think about it. You create all this change, and the changes are stable. They actually reduced prejudice and discrimination. The greater presence of female political representatives produced a surprise change in women's reporting of crime against women, and also in the police responsiveness to such crimes. Check this out, guys. After this policy, women were less afraid of reporting crimes. And police was more responsive about those crimes. So it's not only that now you have the guts to go there and say, oh, this guy hit me, or that guy abused of me, or something like that. Not only that, but now the police starts taking you seriously. So this is a huge change. I mean, this is incredible. It's like one of the best cases I've ever read in my entire life, about prejudice and discrimination. I know we're talking about women, we're not talking about color, but still talking about prejudice, right? We're still talking about people being unfairly treated. And this policy actually changed something. Societies can change. I know we think that they don't. Yeah, but they do. Sometimes it may take a long time, but they do change. Okay. Now let's take a look at a second example, and the one that is like not so great. Somehow we're going to see some sort of intervention, and the intervention did not work. Okay? So we're talking about political affirmative actions for people considered untouchable. So let's give you an explanation about this before we start. Now, for a very long time, for thousands of years, the population of India has been divided in castes. What is that? Well, we say that in Portuguese, castas. So depending on who are your father, you're going to be in a certain status in society. Então, dependendo de qual família você nasce, você vai nascer numa casta, com um determinado status. Você pode estar lá em cima, ser tratado como a casta dos privilegiados, dos iluminados, aqueles que vão ser médicos, presidentes, engenheiros. Você pode estar numa casta lá embaixo. If you are in the lowest caste, it means that people don't even touch you. If they look at you, they think that will bring bad luck for them, just to look at you. So you shouldn't be in public. You would have to be outside the city, in some place that no one has to look at you. Think about this. And I'm talking about people the same color as you. They look like you, but regardless, if they are from that group of families, they are considered untouchable. They are considered like very bad thing. I mean, if you just think about this, just looking at someone from the untouchable castes, or just by looking at it, you would say that your day is over. Oh, I'm going to go back home and take a shower. Why? Because I looked at someone who is untouchable. So this is like a very, very discriminatory way to look at people. It's like absurdly discriminatory, okay? All right, but these things have been going on for literally thousands of years, okay? They have created this system, and these people, they were denied access to temples and schools, so they can't study. They were forced to live in segregated quarters of the villages. They are denied access to owning assets. They can't have a property. They can have a land. They can have a house. And there are many, many occupations that they are simply forbidden to pursue. They can't, oh, I want to work as a doctor. No, you can't. We won't have a doctor from your caste. So this is unbelievably violent way of, segregating people, okay? In some parts of India, untouchables could not even walk through higher castes neighborhood. If you just walk on the streets, you're going to be beaten up, okay? People will spank you. After the independence of India, an end was put to the legal recognition of the rule of caste. But the social behavior of high castes is still today largely governed by the norms of the caste system. So, even though you changed that, there is no law anymore talking about caste. Still, people behave like this. So, what they did, the same thing that they did for the women. Not the village head, but they created political affirmative actions for that group. So they said, all right, the school now will be forced to accept a certain number of students from the untouchables caste. Ok? Então eles puseram lá, não, agora essa escola vai ter que aceitar uma parcela de até, sei lá, 30% dos alunos vai ter que vir daquela casta assim, assim, assado. All right, so those are affirmative actions, right? We have them in Brazil. We have like quotas in the university, and they work fine here. But they didn't work in India. What ended up happening is that those political affirmative actions created even more stigma. And people started treating them worse than they did before. Can you believe that? So you try to solve a problem and the problem gets worse. Why is that? Why do you think is that so? Let me stop here and look at you for a minute. Let's think about this for a while, guys. All right. I gave you two examples. Same country, but in the first case, we were talking about gender, women and men. Second case, we were talking about this spiritual, religious aspect of how people segregated society for a long time. Can someone try and explain to me why in one case the intervention worked and why in the other case it didn't? Alguém me ajuda a entender por que que no primeiro caso funcionou? Por que que ao introduzir aquela possibilidade de as mulheres serem líderes da vila, funcionou tão bem? E no segundo caso não funcionou, quando você começou a criar políticas afirmativas para pessoas de castas mais baixas. Let me hear. I want to hear from you. You can type it in here in the chat, or you can open up your mic and say. Take a guess. Tenta adivinhar aí, pessoal. Por que que num dos casos funcionou e por que que no outro caso não funcionou? Por que que deu certo colocar as mulheres em papéis de liderança na maneira como as mulheres passaram a ser vistas naquela sociedade? E por que que não deu certo você criar ações afirmativas para pessoas de castas mais baixas? Pode falar, João.
Doutor, não sei se está pegando direitinho meu microfone, espero que esteja.
Estamos te ouvindo bem, pode falar.
Seria no sentido de... Eu não entendo bem se é o sentido de você meio que estar apadrinhando essas pessoas, não sei se dá para entender a lógica.
Uhum.
Mas de subjugar a habilidade que elas têm mesmo de estar fazendo o que elas estão fazendo. Eu não sei se é nesse sentido ou no sentido de, tipo, não seja financeiramente viável isso, ou as pessoas não vão obedecer, enfim.
Uhum.
Não sei se é nessa perspectiva.
Entendi. Você acha que pode ser que no caso das castas, aquele tipo de tratamento fosse como se fosse a pessoa não sendo capaz, né? Como se o Estado tivesse intervindo para falar assim, você tem que dar algum apoio porque aquela pessoa não é capaz de conseguir por ela mesma, é isso?
Eu não sei se sou assim, sabe?
Uhum.
Numa perspectiva de estar facilitando o trabalho, enquanto a galera... É um argumento muito usado pelo pessoal, né? De que você está dando oportunidade e a pessoa não vai aproveitar 100%, vamos dizer assim. Ou não vai render o que ela realmente deveria render.
Uhum. Yeah, that's a good point. So, people could be just skeptical. As pessoas podiam ser simplesmente céticas e falar assim, não vai adiantar nada. Vai fazer aquilo e não vai adiantar nada. And you are right in one point, João, that if you treat people expecting less of them, you're going to get less. So let me give you this example. You are all here my students in this class, right? If I treat you as if you were stupid, you are not going to dedicate to this class. You're not going to dedicate your time, your efforts to this class. So the way we treat people affects how they respond. So yeah, this is very important reflection. Yeah, good. Pode falar, Gabriel. Diga lá.
Acho que isso aí se aplica um pouco no caso das mulheres, eu acho. Porque eles esperaram menos delas. Isso aí sim. Tanto que quando eles tiveram que colocar uma posição de destaque, como você falou, o pensamento era mais de ataque, né? Não vai passar por isso, não vai passar por aquilo. E a partir daí elas começaram a mostrar que podiam, né? Que eram capazes e começaram a incentivar. Quanto às castas, eu acho que era um aspecto mais religioso, e aí afetava mais, não só no que as pessoas esperavam das outras, mas às vezes também no que elas esperam de si mesmas. O fato de se comparar com aquelas pessoas, o fato da pessoa estar sendo agora vivenciando, né, as mesmas coisas que elas, o fato de se sentirem superiores também. Eu acho que muito do que refletiam, né, essas pessoas refletiam nelas mesmas do que elas esperavam dessas pessoas em si.
Excellent point, Gabriel. Yes, you're right. And I would add to that. Vou adicionar aqui uma questão para sua análise. In the first case, People developed the intervention, they made the intervention, and then they gather results. They get the numbers. They checked the numbers of what happened, right? In the second case, they tried to have the intervention, and society rejected. They didn't accept that. So if you bring the kids to school, the kids would not want to go because they were afraid. They knew they could be beaten, they would be treated, humiliated. So they didn't want to go because people there in the school would not accept them. So in one case, the policy was actually conducted for some time. They gathered the results and they showed the results publicly how the thing didn't work. In the second case, they didn't even concluded the intervention. They couldn't finish it. So in that case, the rejection, this sort of rejection was so big, so strong, that they couldn't even perform the tests to show that kids from lower castes could still have good development, could participate, and could, become important members of society. So in that case, they even could make the intervention. Não conseguiram nem sequer fazer, quanto mais juntar números. We have to say something about this in Brazil. Brazil, we didn't have quotas until very recently. I'm talking about 14 years ago. Okay, 14, 15 years ago. We didn't have quota to get in the universities. Now we do. As they created the quota, they said, okay, every university will have until 5 years so that they can gradually change, and then 50% of the new students will have to come either from public schools or those who declare themselves to be black. So that's what we have now. But the universities were given 5 years to adapt. Okay? You know what Universidade Federal Rural said? They said, we don't need 5 years. We are going to assume 50% right away, the first year. We didn't want to gradually change. We said, we agree with this policy and it's going to be right on. So we were enthusiastic about this. As a university, we were very enthusiastic. And then we gathered the numbers. We checked the numbers. And what we did find, that they were exactly as capable, and they got the good grades, and they did exactly as the other kids did. So there was no difference in performance if you came in the university from a quota or if you don't. So, we did have the intervention. It worked. It is working for quite some time now, and we have the numbers to prove it. So in this case, society has accepted the change. We have accepted, we decided to make this thing work, and it did. It's not a problem anymore. People don't talk about this as a problem anymore. You don't see people arguing on TV saying, oh, those quota, they are absurd. No one talks about that anymore. And we take it for granted. We say, oh yeah, it's obvious. No, it was not obvious. We had to step up. We have to realize that we could do better as a university. And I think we're doing better now. All right, so this is fascinating stuff, isn't it? Questions so far? Okay, so I would like to ask you a question now. How bad is prejudice and discrimination in Brazil compared to what we know of other countries? And the second question I want to ask you is this. Do you think that Adam Smith would have anything important to say about prejudice and discrimination? So let me hear a couple of answers for each of those questions. A primeira pergunta, gente. Preconceito e a discriminação no Brasil é melhor, é pior ou é igual no resto do mundo? Vocês acham que aqui a gente é mais preconceituoso do que nos Estados Unidos ou menos?
Eu acho que aqui, professor, a gente é menos do que lá ainda. Pelo menos o racial. Não que a gente não seja, mas o separatismo lá eu acho mais forte do que aqui. E eu acho que até o preconceito com a mulher também. Aí eles ainda têm essa pegada mais machista também.
Então, Carlos, eu vou concordar com você. Só um minutinho, Eric, só para concordar com o Carlos aqui. Nos Estados Unidos...
Não, eu só adicionar um pensamento meu, coisa rápida.
Pode falar, por favor.
Nesse raciocínio, é que eu acho que aqui, eu creio que aqui tem uma população maior de negros em proporção em relação lá aos Estados Unidos, né? Eu acho que a população, pelo menos impressão minha, não sei se isso tô pensando agora. Talvez seja lá a proporção de negros seja menor em relação aqui. Talvez aqui a população negra é muito maior em relação a lá. Aí talvez eu acho que lá seja muito mais incisiva essa questão.
Exato. Ó, vocês dois estão certos, tá? It is true that the black population in America, it's like around 10 to 15% of the whole population. In Brazil, it's easily more than 50, okay? Some numbers would lead us to, I don't know, 60 or 55 or 70, but depending on how you calculate that, and depending on how people decide to declare themselves, okay? But yes, it's a much larger proportion of the population. Now, the point that Carlos was saying here, okay, in the United States, you don't see as many interracial couples as we do here. Here, we are reasonably used to see black girl with white guy, black guy with white girl. I mean, it's not always, but we do see that, okay? In the United States, those things happen much, much less often. And the second point is that the violence against black people there is like absolutely evident. And here, what we have is the violence against poor people. If you are black, if you are white, it doesn't matter. If you are poor, you are going to be suffering violence. In the United States, it's much more likely to suffer with, just for example, police brutality. It's much more likely to suffer with police brutality if you're a black person than if you're a white guy or girl, okay? So in Brazil, we have much more strong prejudice and discrimination against poor people, regardless of their color. And in there, it is very marked phenomenon. You can see much more violence against black people. Now, the second question, I think you guys can imagine the answer, right? So, oops, wait, sorry. I ended up the presentation. That was not my intention. Just a second. Okay. So the second question is this. You guys know who this fella is, right? Adam Smith. Todo mundo sabe quem que é o Adam Smith? Qual foi o livro que o Adam Smith escreveu?
O livro?
Yeah. A Riqueza das Nações.
Ele é um grande pensador na área administração e economia, né? Mas o livro eu não sabia não.
Exactly. Okay, guys, so this guy has wrote the book about economics. He's considered the father of economics. He was the person who, for the first time, gathered what were like pieces of knowledge from different sciences and put together to say, this is economics, okay? And the way he did that was explaining to people what exactly is the nature of wealth, okay? He explained to people o que é riqueza. Falou assim, não importa explicar a causa, não importa apenas explicar a causa de um país ser rico ou ser pobre. Eu tenho que ir mais profundo, eu tenho que falar o que é ser rico. So his explanation is like a huge treatise of the economics, okay? This book, The Wealth of Nations, it actually is not named The Wealth of Nations. O livro A Riqueza das Nações, na verdade, não se chama A Riqueza das Nações. O nome inteiro do livro é Uma Investigação sobre a Causa e a Natureza da Riqueza das Nações. So it's too long. People shortened it, became just The Wealth of Nations. But this guy is the father of economics. His book was written in 1776. And it's still, if you look at it today, you're still going to get lessons about economics. You're still going to say, wow, this guy had like a vision. He's like someone absolutely out of his time. He could see what others couldn't. And it's very fascinating to read this book. You guys should try sometime, okay? So let's have a look at this guy, Adam Smith. Let's take a look at some of the things that he has written. So, it is not from the benevolence of the brewer or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interests. I'm going to translate that to Portuguese for you. Não é por ser bonzinho que o cervejeiro ou o padeiro vão nos garantir um bom jantar, mas é porque eles perseguem os seus próprios interesses pessoais. Wow, that doesn't look so, heartwarming or anything like that. It looks like business. Yeah. Let me show you the second phrase here. The most abundant mines, either of the precious metals or of the precious stones, could add little to the wealth of the world. O que ele está falando é assim, a quantidade de ouro ou de metais preciosos que você pode ter nas minas não vão adicionar em nada, ou quase nada, à riqueza do mundo. So he's trying to say, wealth, it's not this. Wealth is a process of prosperity, of people finding what they are good at, and of society promoting opportunities for people to do what they want. Então, o que ele está explicando é assim, o que transforma uma nação em próspera não é metais preciosos, nem pedras preciosas. O que transforma um país rico é todo um processo de criação de riqueza e que ele vai explicar. All right, so this book, The Wealth of Nations, it looks like, regular business. We're talking about business, wealth. We're talking about money. We're talking about jobs. Yeah, it looks like economics as we know it, right? Conventional economics. But many people don't know is that Adam Smith has also written another book. This book, which by the way he wrote first, it's called The Theory of Moral Sentiments. Então, esse livro, que na verdade o Adam Smith publicou antes daquele que ficou conhecido como a obra seminal, a obra inicial de todo o pensamento econômico. Antes disso, ele publicou esse livro, A Teoria dos Sentimentos Morais. You know what this book is about? This book is about empathy, how we can feel someone else suffering. How can we somehow understand and feel bad when you see someone suffering some kind of harm. So it was whole book dedicated to empathy. Ele criou um outro livro, esse outro livro era um tratado sobre a empatia, a capacidade de se colocar no lugar do outro, de sentir a dor do outro, de se compadecer pelo outro. So let's have a look at some phrases that we got from this book. How selfish soever men may be supposed, there are evidently some principles in his nature which interests him in the fortune of others, and render their happiness necessary to him, though he derives nothing from it except the pleasure of seeing it. So let me translate it to Portuguese for you. Por mais egoísta que um camarada possa ser suposto, ele evidentemente há evidentemente alguns princípios na sua natureza que o fazem se interessar pela sorte, pelo resultado para os outros, e considerar que a felicidade dos outros também é necessária para ele, mesmo que ele não ganhe nada com isso, além do prazer de observar. So what he's trying to say here is like, there are many other things aside from money. People can feel good because they see other people happy. So it turns out that we are not that selfish. Even if we are, we still can feel good with the wealth of others. The second question, man naturally desires not only to be loved, but to be lovely. Os homens naturalmente desejam não apenas serem amados, mas serem amáveis. Serem consideradas pessoas amáveis, consideradas pessoas capazes de amor. You see, so it looks like we're talking about two Adam Smiths. The one here talking about only business, money, wealth, and the other one here talking about moral sentiments, empathy, right? But at this point, you guys here who study behavior economics, you guys already know that we can do both. We can study economics, we can learn about finance, we can talk about interest rates, and we can also talk about how people feel, how people behave. Economics is bigger than just finance and money and stocks. A economia é muito mais ampla do que finanças, moeda, taxa de juros. A economia também inclui o comportamento das pessoas, o sentimento das pessoas, a maneira como elas conduzem modelos mentais. You guys know that. Many of your friends don't. Muitos dos seus amigos que não fizeram essa disciplina não se dão conta disso. De que a economia é um olhar mais amplo do que apenas a parte financeira das decisões das pessoas. All right? Okay, I'm almost done here, but I wanted to show you a picture before I let you guys go. Take a look at this picture you got here. I know it's just an illustration, but it will help us making a point. So take a good look at this, and then I will ask some of you to explain what you're seeing. Okay? Dê uma olhada nessa foto aí. E, por favor, alguém me explique o que está vendo aí. São duas etapas, né? São duas cenas. O que está acontecendo? Quem vai experimentar me explicar? Vamos pegar alguém que ainda não falou. Cadê? Daniel, Crisline, alguém abre o microfone aí, ou então digita aqui no chat, por favor, gente.
Professor,
Pode falar, Fábio.
Está relacionado à influência que o comportamento de outras pessoas tem nos indivíduos. Aí por isso que a questão social, né, que os humanos são animais sociais, né?
Mas descreve para mim essa cena. O que tem no primeiro quadro, o que acontece no segundo?
Então, justamente, ele observa, né, pelo que eu estou vendo aqui, ele observa um grupo de pessoas com um guarda-chuva que, para eles, o guarda-chuva é importante porque tá caindo água na janela deles, no caso. Aí ele utiliza o guarda-chuva também na sua própria janela, mesmo não precisando, entendeu? Eu entendi isso, tá?
Exatamente isso. Essa pessoa, ela viu que os outros estão equivocados. Ela entende por que elas estão equivocadas. Porque ela conseguiu ver o hidrante jorrando água. Os outros tinham só aquela janelinha. Eles só estavam vendo a água caindo. Esse outro carinha aqui com a cor mais branca, esse cara viu o que estava acontecendo. Ele entende o que está acontecendo. Mas ele vai lá e age igual os outros. So, what's going on here? This guy is not rational? He's crazy? How come he can behave even though he understands what's going on? All right, guys. Here's the thing. We think together. We believe that our brain is independent and that we have our own thoughts and we are a single person and we take care of our own life. Okay? We think that, but it's not like this. We end up thinking what other people do, what other people think. We can't avoid. If we are around people, we end up getting some of their perspectives, believing some of their beliefs, and we end up mixing. So it's like as if we were a single brain. A sociedade é como se a gente fosse cérebros conectados, formando um único cérebro. Claro que não é assim, né? A gente sabe que não existe telepatia e tal, né? Não é uma conexão direta. But the point is to think for yourself, to think really independently is one of the hardest things people can ever do. Uma das coisas mais difíceis que o ser humano é capaz de fazer, e ele faz raramente, poucas pessoas são capazes de pensar de forma independente. A maioria de nós nem sabe o que isso quer dizer. We don't see that. We don't realize that. But that's what really works. I mean, if you try to think independently, it's very uncomfortable. You are very much afraid. So it's comfortable to just take someone else's opinion, don't diverge completely from what other people do, and we don't like to participate, to be so different than anyone else. So the point is, there is this concept of sociality. It's not society, it's sociality. Let me say it in Portuguese. É a socialidade. A gente não consegue separar a nosso raciocínio, a nossa mente completamente do coletivo. A gente é um indivíduo com a mente coletiva. So we understand what is in the minds of others and often act as if our brains are networked with the brains of other people. So take a look at this phrase. Humans are deeply social animals. We don't feel bad when we are missing our friends. It's not only that. It's that we can't even think individually. In order to think, we have to use the same assumptions, the same hypotheses of other people. We don't like to take completely new hypotheses and think for ourselves. So, you may look at me and say, where are you going with all of this? Você deve estar olhando para essa discussão toda e falando assim, onde é que você está indo com toda essa história, Luiz? Eu falo assim, we are just starting to understand what prejudice really is. A gente está só começando a entender o que o preconceito realmente é. Mas o preconceito é isso aqui, ó. People thinking collectively. We think collectively. Racism is not inherent. It is learned. O racismo não é herdado. Você não nasce racista. Você aprende a ser racista. Você aprende a ser racista porque você pensa coletivamente. We do think collectively. Those things have to be treated as a collective problem, not as an individual problem. I know if you are racist, if you behave like that, you will be punished. But the guilty is not only yours. It's yours and someone else's. Go ahead, Sarah.
Não, só para complementar que a gente está sempre sendo influenciado pelo meio em que estamos, né?
Uhum.
A gente nasce e cresce, né? A gente nasce sem saber de nada e começamos a ter informações do meio em que vivemos, e isso faz com que a gente torne e tome decisões que muitas vezes elas podem ser as... É porque é difícil dizer o que é certo e o que é errado, né?
Uhum.
Mas é sempre a influência do meio. Nunca é uma pessoa única, né? Que tornou aquilo ali na proporção que está.
É isso mesmo, Sara, mas eu vou te dar algumas palavrinhas que você vai expressar essa ideia ainda mais precisamente, que é assim, ó, a gente aprende socialmente, a gente aprende comportamentos, a gente aprende socialmente, a gente olha os outros fazerem, a gente compara, tem os modelos, o modelo do meu pai, o modelo da minha mãe, pequenininho, a gente olha o que nossos pais fazem, o que nosso vizinho faz, a gente cria aqueles modelos, aquilo ali, ó, apanhou porque fez aquilo, aquele ali se deu bem, ganhou um prêmio porque fez aquele. Então a gente começa a construir esses modelos e a gente aprende socialmente. This class is almost over, guys, but let me just write down here a name of this guy, Albert Bandura. And if you are curious about this, take a look at the Bobo doll experiment. Bobo doll experiment. Procura no Google aí depois, no YouTube, para vocês assistirem o que é o experimento do João Bobo. Né? João Bobo é aquele boneco inflável, que tem uma base mais pesada de areia, aí você bate nele, ele cai e volta, né? Fica sempre em pé. Aí, esse psicólogo chamado Alberto Bandura resolveu fazer experimentos para ver como que se as crianças poderiam aprender a violência, aprender a ser violentas, observando os outros. So this was a very controversial experiment. Obviously, it was conducted a long time ago. Today, I don't think they would allow a psychologist to make such kind of experiment. But then again, it worked a long time ago. So he proved that, yes, people can learn to be violent. And that is more likely to happen when the model is like a father or someone important to him. Se uma criança observa atos violentos, e esses atos violentos, principalmente quando eles vêm de um pai ou de uma figura modelo para elas, elas podem incorporar aquele comportamento a modo de viver delas muito rapidamente. Yeah, go ahead, Isaac. You want to make a comment?
Professor, essa questão do racismo, não falta um maior engajamento dos próprios negros, não, com relação a essa questão, ao invés de tentar um embranquecimento, né? E a gente vê uma tentativa também de embranquecimento da raça, né? Você dificilmente vê um casal da mesma cor, um negro com uma negra e vice-versa. Será que a gente não precisava de um engajamento maior, além, obviamente, né, de apoio governamental, de mais discussão em torno desse assunto?
Eu concordo em parte contigo, Isaac, mas é porque você já está vendo o resultado do preconceito, entende? E como eu estava explicando, como o preconceito é ensinado socialmente, as pessoas negras, elas são ensinadas a serem preconceituosas contra elas mesmas. Elas sofreram na pele preconceito desde muito novas. E alguns desses comportamentos elas adotaram copiando seus pais, que sofreram mais violência ainda do que elas sofrem hoje. Então, assim, ao você ver essas tentativas, que você usou a expressão que eu não gosto muito, que é de embranquecimento, assim, tal, mas esse fenômeno que você está observando é o resultado do preconceito. Não é que essas pessoas estão deixando de lutar contra o preconceito. É que elas estão demonstrando o efeito que o preconceito teve sobre elas. Então, elas estão demonstrando o resultado. Isso não é a causa, isso é o resultado do preconceito. Elas têm essas sequelas que foram carregadas através de violência psicológica, violência afetiva, violência física. Então, assim, é o resultado, não é a causa. Eu entendo que a solução vem por esse lado que você está falando. A solução, claro, eu também acho que os negros precisam se valorizar. Isso aconteceu nos Estados Unidos, todo um movimento para falar Black is beautiful. Tem um movimento inteiro nos Estados Unidos chamado Black is beautiful. O preto é bonito, a cor preta é bonita. And it was a long process to raise the self-esteem of these people, but it worked. And it can work here in Brazil too. Sarah, you want to add something?
Eu ia falar exatamente tudo isso que o senhor falou, que é muito complicado a pessoa, né, estando num espaço em que sempre foi muito... sofreu muito preconceito, sempre foi muito oprimida, ter uma mentalidade forte para lutar contra isso. Termina justamente seguindo isso, né? E sobre o exemplo que o senhor falou no começo da aula em relação ao Vinícius Júnior e a opinião dele sobre, né, a resposta dele sobre, que justamente não é todo mundo que consegue responder da forma que ele respondeu. Tem que a pessoa ter uma mentalidade muito forte e reconhecer quem você é e que aquilo que está sendo sempre repetido, né, está errado, né? Uhum. Mas é muito difícil, a gente sempre termina a pessoa praticando o que sempre viu, ouviu, recebeu, né? É complicado, é uma mudança que tem que ser, de fato, coletiva. Não dá para a pessoa mudar sozinha, ou se não apenas... justamente os negros mudarem a sua forma de ver, sendo que eles que sofreram tanto. Aí exigir isso, tipo, a mudança deles em relação a eles mesmos, né? Tem que ser uma mudança coletiva no geral.
Exato. All right, guys. Anyone else would like to make a comment about this to add up to our discussion? Okay, so I'm going to stop here. And for Friday, I'm going to record some more discussions of this, but I'm going to give you another TED Talk, okay? One that is very, very good. One of the best psychologists in the world is going to be talking about prejudice and discrimination. So keep it up and we'll be talking, okay? All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to stop recording right now, but I'm going to be here for a few more minutes if you want to talk to me, okay? Otherwise, just enjoy your evening.